Can anyone hear me now? Supposedly, yeah. Okay, so I was talking. Okay, so please give me some feedback. Can you hear me now? I hope so. At least my microphone says that, Zoom says that I'm giving up sound. So my microphone is working. Yeah, like we've been having some pretty unwanted stuff technically in the past few weeks and days with Zoom as well and the servers. But let me see. Okay, like people, okay, thank you. Yes, we can hear you. That's awesome. So basically I was giving a big speech to to an audience that didn't hear me. Okay, so let's rewind. So basically in a short version, I want to talk about today many of us are starting out on our spiritual journey. Also, we are, even if you're well advanced on your journey, the basics apply to everyone. And when we are setting out to explore this new realm on how things work, on who we are, what is this world and this galaxy that we live in, we're exposed to many things. And we need to learn how to navigate this whole new environment, since we're very sensitive to all types of energies, and we're exposed to them and we're absorbing them into our being. So the best way and the simplest thing to do is setting boundaries for yourself. Like what is okay for you and what is not okay for you? What types of energies do you want to have in your life and what you want to filter out, basically. And that's where setting boundaries comes in. Okay. Thank you for leaving the session, Fitzy. Okay, so I have also said that anyone who wishes to share their experience or has any questions, then please do so in the chat box, or if you're listening to the replay, then you can do it in the comment section at this time. Okay. Hopefully there are, I just wanted to say that hopefully my dog won't disturb us, but like it's a very hot heat wave around here, and I had to keep open my windows. Okay, so he left. Sorry for that. We have a nice little boxer, and he's very passionate about barking people on the streets. Alrighty, so let's start with a few announcements. If any of you are interested in the Hermetic teachings, transmutation, alchemy, or if you are familiar with the Kabbalion or Hermetic teachings, then please do check out the teachings of Thoth the Atlantean for the dawn of the space age. It is a great addition to the whole Hermetic philosophy literature, basically, and explains many principles and how you can, basically in a practical way, how you can use your abilities and how things work so you can create a life experience for yourself that is actually beneficial for you. That is in the description. And also, if you're interested, we have our Patreon community where we have different types of group activities each week. Next week, probably we're going to have another channeling session. Last week, we had a group meditation for clearing negative energies and healing. So if you're interested in that, then please check it out. Okay. So Aaron, I was able to see my Merkaba screen and the program, some things with galactic teachers help. Okay. Yeah, like we also, when we have an awakening and we're opening ourselves up to this new reality, basically, then many new teachers come in. Like we always had our guides and protectors, but basically, as the Kabbalion says, when the student is ready, then the teacher will appear in their lives. And we have many types of teachers, like many of us, or some of us at least, prefer people who are actually in the physical, people who you can relate to, but we have many energetic or astral teachers like ascended masters, elementals, or ET guides, or angels, archangels, whatever you resonate with will come to you and assist you, because like that's closest to your resonance. Like there aren't like okay and not okay versions of it, like whatever works for you. Basically, you have all set up for yourself these meetings, these contracts before you came in, that on specific parts of your journey, beings will present themselves to you to assist you in that specific part of your journey. And after you have finished working together, they will move on, and you will move on as well to another phase of your journey, basically. Okay, so let's go back to the setting boundaries part on how it works and what you can do in a practical sense each day, because in my humble opinion, like, you have to renew these stuff and consciously work on this aspect of what you want to experience and what you don't want to experience, because we live in a hazardous environment. We are exposed to many things, and we constantly have to work on ourselves. We have to do maintenance on ourselves and be very present on what is happening within our beings, with our bodies, with our minds, and how connected we are to spirit, basically. And the first step that you can do in this whole journey is basically like learning what is your energy and what is the energy of other people or other beings, or maybe just places, because like each place and realm has its own energy, has its own memories, it has its own attachments and stuff that are bound to those places. And also things can be bound to people, to beings. Like, we all have karma, and we came in to transmute those negative karmas in this lifetime. And when you're traveling in your earth experience, you can be exposed to the karma and negative aspects of other people or places. So it is very important to learn what is you and what is not yours, so you can like separate it out. So hello, higher vibrations.
Hello,
so,
how are you?
So we are all in uniform. You're wearing a black t-shirt too.
We match.
So hello, it's awesome to have you. I think I did 3 minutes without anyone hearing me, and I announced that, hey, maybe there's a possibility that you're going to join us. But welcome, hello. How are you doing? Are you well?
Yeah, thank you. It's the energies kind of like have this like poof thing happening right now. It's like pushing us up in these like sporadic, and it's affecting technology too. So perhaps that's why I've noticed, like yesterday when Guardian and I were on our Patreon meeting, his Patreon meeting, I lost power. But what's cool is they could still see me for like a couple of seconds. I haven't actually reviewed that video yet, but that was weird. All of my electricity went out, didn't have any lights, and I could see them too. That's bizarre.
You were able to talk for like 10 seconds or so, then you went out.
It's interesting, as we connect as empathic, energetic beings. I think that type of experience is gonna be a little bit more accessible to the masses.
Yeah, like that's what we've been working on basically for so long, to anchor these new energies and to make it accessible for everyone, or at least people who want to tune into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jacaranda Marie had a question. Do you think that our guides have always been there, but we can't connect to them until we raise our vibration to match closer to theirs? Like, I think that's a pretty good point. Like, they're always there, you always have guides with you, but I think like most of the times we're not aware of them. Like, even if you're like super in tune and higher vibrational, like, they don't feel the need to present themselves to us, basically.
Right.
But they are there if we need assistance. And yeah, like, I think you have, in my opinion, like 2 types of guides. Like, you have your basic team that are there to assist you on whatever you need to do. And you have these periodic guides that maybe on a specific section of your journey, they come in as a teacher to help you with something that you're exploring at that time. And when you have worked with him or her, then they move on because you're also moving on to a different aspect of your own journey. And I guess like also our basic team can also change, I guess, like depending on our needs. But I think like most of the time we're not aware of them. But I think if you want to interact with them, you can, because it's accessible. They just don't feel the need to present themselves to you, I think.
Right. And I think that there's a couple of points that is kind of, it's interesting to try to wrap our minds around these things as they happen, because once you finally understand them, you forget to ask about them anymore. It's kind of a weird thing. But when it comes to just expand on what you already said, our frequency raises enough to perceive and to interact with them. And at the same time as that's happening, you've now graduated using those specific guides. I mean, not to say that they go away forever or anything like that, but as we raise our frequency, we have a new team basically coming in, and the same is true for our higher selves. It's a bizarre thing to say, but many of you, I'm sure, relate and have had the same experience. We kind of absorb our higher self, or our higher self absorbs us in some way as we go through each of these different levels of experience, and vibrational evolution. When we get high enough up to where our higher self is, then we can merge again. And now that your higher self that you connect to is the higher self of what was your higher self before. If that makes any sense. It's really hard to portray these experiences in a way that people can understand, because we still don't have a lot of the language, and our mind doesn't really bend that way.
Yeah, like regarding the higher self part, I think, at least in my experience, it kind of works in the way that we have our higher aspect, which is connected to everything, and you can like see it as the oversoul, which is like connecting many lifetimes on different timelines. And the more we heal ourselves and come in alignment, then I think we are able to integrate more of that oversoul aspect in a conscious way in this life as well. Like you can't integrate it all because the our physical platform is not made for that. But as we're evolving, you're able to like retain more and more of that energy, of that wisdom or gifts or whatever you want to call it, in a conscious way. And I think like many of you, I guess we also talked about it with you, higher vibrations, that there are these times when I wouldn't say like something takes over, but suddenly when there's like a need for it, you suddenly know like what you need to do and how things work. And basically you have information and knowledge about things that you logically wouldn't be able to have otherwise.
Right, exactly. It just comes naturally. And then for me, in my experience, then I can't access that again, at least at that moment. When I try to, it's like, oh, cool, I'm going to try doing that again. And when you don't actually need it, it's not really available. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, like that's also what I found with this whole mystical stuff and like manifestation, transmutation, that I would say like maybe I would like separate into two categories. You have like your normal circumstances that you go about your day and like nothing special or out of the ordinary happens. And sometimes there are like occasions when you are needed, or you have to like perform something that you normally don't do. And under those occasions, like things align in a way that you become this vessel for something much greater. And you're like aligning different stuff that is basically very much out of your control. Right. And you're basically holding space for that and making sure that those things manifest. And you will say like, oh, like that is amazing. But when you would want to do that consciously or like make it happen, it just doesn't work, because it's basically, I guess you didn't initiate that in the first place. You just were kind of like part of that whole alignment and manifestation that has happened.
Right. And there's a part of us that's always on autopilot, a large part, in fact. Like we talk about this 90 to 95% of our DNA being garbage DNA, junk DNA, that they're saying, oh, maybe it's not so much junk anymore. But we all knew that. It wasn't a surprise to be told that. And as that's happening, we don't realize that a lot of this stuff, a lot of these things that are now coming online for us, and we can do some of these things with intention. They've been running in the background all along, like a program, a background, just running in the background to make these things happen. So we do it with intention, but it's, again, like you said, it's more of your higher self. It's you, but if you don't know that muscle's there, you don't know how to use it, or that you can use it until it's a situation where you do. Like I think, and I kind of channeled into that information about why there are certain things that happen in all of our lives that are undesirable. And it's like, why did that happen? Like, some, the debate that happens from that is pretty widespread. However, I found that those things are actually catalysts for us. I'm sure all of you know this too, but like, I found that to be like, wow, great, like groundbreaking information. And it makes sense. The catalyst, what it does is it gives you a space to need to use that spiritual muscle. And then that spiritual muscle is there, and then the next however long you get to experiment and try to make it work on purpose, with intention. And once we get to the point where we've figured it out, then we don't even need it anymore, and then it's the next thing, so once you finally successfully have mastered something, then it's time for you to move on. Just like in most jobs, you finally figure out what your job is, and then you get promoted and you don't know your job for the next 2 years. It's kind of like
or
that.
you kind of learned everything and you feel okay, like I have to do something else now.
Right.
Yeah, like regarding that state that you just said, and we have discussed about, if any of you know Avatar, The Last Airbender, the TV series, it's like a kid's cartoon, but I think like that perfectly illustrates that whole thing that we've just discussed. You have the main character, the Avatar, and basically he is able to, in the Avatar state, he is able to tap into all his different incarnations, like bring all that knowledge and power into that lifetime. And they call it the Avatar state, but they also have like an episode which is like there for like clearing all the chakras and like connecting with your higher self. And it's all in the kids' cartoon, so check that out if you're interested.
That's the funnest part about this whole thing, I think, is that we've had all these breadcrumbs for so long, and they've just been distributed slowly, just like anything that is used for the, I don't know what the right word is to use anymore, because this opposing energy is the best way to say, I guess, the opposing energy used television for the longest time to try to like create a different way of thinking and being, and ignoring the parts that are true. The fact that you are a powerful being, the fact that you are, more powerful than by yourself than that 1% combined. In order to keep the peace, there's been a lot of things put in there to try to create a disempowerment society. What's interesting and fun though is that any of those types of things, then the light uses that for our use or our assistance also. Anyway, so just all of these things are in television and movies since forever. Before they had movies with sound, you're finding, in the ancient books and stuff, and it's meant to be like entertainment supposedly, but it's like another clue. And these things are all real, like all of the fairy tales and happily ever after and all that stuff, for the vast majority of it is correct, with the Hollywoodization to make it exciting and people to keep buying tickets.
Yeah, you have to read between the lines for those stuff, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to our topic, to like setting boundaries. Like I was discussing the part of, okay, like learning your own energy, since we're like exposed to so many stuff. And like, what can you like, I think we discussed, and I'm going to like sum it up like quickly, like learning your own energy. I think we talked about like 3 weeks ago of like, if you can do it, like go somewhere out in the wilderness, like use nature to its fullest and just be alone there and like learn what do you feel like. And like everything else that doesn't make sense to your state of being is basically someone else's or something else, a different influence that is coming into your being. And yeah, like let's talk about well, basically, you always have to be present as much as you can. We live in a society which is like based upon like distractions and like to be always busy and running around. But still, we have to learn to be as present as possible. Like you're not going to notice all the little shifts and changes while you're working on something, but you can like start to notice like stuff when there can be like more stronger, like, okay, like I'm feeling uneasy because of someone or something is happening, or just something came into my field that is not of my highest good, or I don't prefer that energy. And the more you do it, the more, well, we're always sensitive. We just kind of have to learn to use it in a positive way. Because I think like many of us, like me as well, in the beginning, I was like overwhelmed by this whole thing of like being exposed to everyone's energies, especially in the beginning when I had no clue like what is happening to me. And I think like many people consider it a curse as well, because we're sensitive and we're exposed to so much bad things happening around us. But yeah, like take our gifts as a blessing and as a superpower, because you just have to learn to use it. Like it's a great opportunity to evolve and to actually assist people in a much more profound way than you would normally be able to do. Like, for example, I think like doctors and like psychiatrists and like they're great, like the system in some parts works great, but what I've noticed in many cases that they take everything like by the book and like trying to put everyone into a box. But if you're like into and you're able to like relate to that person, you're empathic, you're able to read their energy and like tap into their being, then you're like gaining a completely different perspective on what they're going through, what do they need, what is happening with them, and how can you best aid them in those situations. So it's not like an equation that you like have to put together like mechanically like a robot and trying to help that person. You actually like see what is deeply happening with that person.
Right.
And also you can use it if you're an, okay, like that's all I know, like if you're an artist, it's an amazing gift to have it as well. It's going to like super boost your creativity in all directions if you learn to use your intuitive skills much more profoundly.
Yes, for sure. And it's just, it's moving away the debris that's in the way, that's between you and it's just a distracting element. The part about realizing what your own energy feels like, that was really important for me also. And you know, just the same thing for you. I went through a period where like I almost started some pretty severe, some heavy medication because of this anxiety I kept feeling. And I was feeling everyone else and it was overwhelming, you know, and once I knew that that wasn't my energy anymore, then it wasn't a problem anymore. And that's really what this is all about for me, you know, like putting myself out there and doing YouTube stuff is to be, because my experience was so uncomfortable until I found out what it was, you know, until I found out there are other people going through the same thing, you know, and as we can, and once we know that's what's happening, it makes it easier to do. And then you're able to do it. It doesn't make any sense to say it that way, but you know, without that knowledge, I wasn't able to go to the next step, you know, and it's really useful to be able to feel into people, but also separate self, know the difference. And like you said, you know, Guardian constantly is talking about shielding, using energetic shielding, you know, and different ways to kind of guard the energy away, you know, and honestly, to me, that's really setting boundaries. That's my boundary setting, is my energetic boundary, you know, and like we do that, you know, on every layer of the echo, all the way down to the 3D kind of experience where you're saying, okay, you know, talking to somebody about it. But if I separate my energy and I'm standing in my power, you know, and how I do that personally is I fill up a bubble of light around me, you know, and like that's my favorite go-to place. It's full of love, you know, and like, and so everybody that's experiencing that shield are getting something back. They're being, because that's my calling here, is to send the love out to everyone, you know, and when it's done, it amplifies itself. It's hardly any work at all, you know. It does itself, you know. It's as simple as throwing a pebble in the pond. I didn't make the rest of the ripples, but yes, I did. I also did, you know. And so filling up that bubble of light around me, starting with grounding myself and pulling in the light from source through my crown chakra. And every time you breathe out, it's white light and it fills up. And kind of took you off topic again, but that seemed like it was important to mention. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like that's also, yeah, like as you said, I always mention it, like how you can put boundaries is like shielding yourself and like setting up these rules and like regulations on what you can experience and what you don't want to experience basically in your life. Because if you like walk about like any normal human being and you have like not set boundaries for yourself and you have not shielded yourself, then basically we're exposed to everything. And like anything can come in to interact with you. You come into your energetic field. So like basically you're like an open book for everything and everyone to interact with you and to do whatever they want to, or however what they want to influence you basically. And that's also very important when, yeah, like when we're awakening, where our energy is changing and we're far more, I wouldn't say like exposed, but we're far more an easier target for like other dimensional beings. Like we stand out a lot more, and like many beings are attracted to that type of energy. And that's why it's so important to shield yourself. So anything that is not of your highest good, like cannot come into your life. It cannot interact with your energies and basically just leaves you alone because you don't want those influences in your life, basically. And I think one love, I know someone who shields themselves, but they still attract and all walks of life, some not so positive. So basically they're attracting not so positive stuff. Yeah. Yeah, like I can attest to that too. Yeah, but basically, as you were saying, they are there they can serve like multiple purposes. Like maybe it is something that you have to work on, or maybe that thing comes into your life because you're able to aid them to like overcome their negativity or to heal them. Or maybe it's just something that you need to learn and to evolve. And just as you have said that we have all these gifts, but if we're like not challenged, then we don't develop. Like if there's nothing, no challenge to be overcome, then we're in our comfort zone, and there's no growth in your comfort zone. Then you're just like stagnating. And that is why you come to planet Earth to challenge yourself on all levels and like reconsider, like, was it a good idea to come here in the first place?
Right. I think all of us have done that. We used to talk about our vacation planet all the time. I noticed that comment too. I'm happy that you brought that up. So when I read it, the first thing I saw was like this festering wound and you put a Band-Aid on top, and like, and that's just the visual I got because my visuals are very exaggerated. And that's to say that, hey, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 here. That you can put anything you want on the outside, but if you're not able to or whatever to work on yourself too, then there's still going to be stuff happening there. You're still going to be attracting it. And what I mean by working on self is that, that working on that self-forgiveness specifically, because the self-love really doesn't have a lot of room to be in your sphere when there's forgiveness of self to be done. But also, that these other layers of things, like we don't realize that when we're talking about to the universe or whatever, sending out this second signal to the universe saying what we don't want, we're not on purpose, but we're wording it in a way that we're saying, I do want it, because you're using those words instead of saying don't, do, and just these other little weird little tricks that you pick up along the way and you learn a little easier each time. I think almost everybody that I've talked to, including myself, the earlier awakening experiences were kind of a shock. We had, like Guardian said, all this, we're called lighthouses for a reason. We are showing all energies this light just by being. And the more that you come into your true being, the more that you're going to shine and the more attention you're going to get. And it's not that these energies want to cause you disharmony at all. In fact, they just are attracted to your light. There's no access to it for them. And so as these energies come in, it's something that I did. You're not required to, but I would create these funnels of light for them to go into and for them to be released into that new space. A lot of times that's what they're just asking to do. They've been asking for so many years that the way that asking is done, it's different now. After you've asked the same thing for eons, you're no longer as polite perhaps as you might have been before.
And also, like, there are like also not just beings but people like who are like very negative or were very traumatized or are aggressive, or like are they energy vampires, and maybe they have been that way all their lives and that's the only way they're able to interact with you, like that's all they know. Then all of a sudden they're like not going to be very nice to you because like they don't know how that works. That's not who they are, basically. And I also wanted to expand on what you said regarding, okay, like you're shielding yourself but you're still getting negative stuff in your life. And there is the longer version, the long-term version of like shielding yourself is basically working on yourself, clearing yourself and healing yourself, so you no longer have those negative aspects in your life, in your field, in your karma, that those dark stuff can come in and attach themselves to. So basically you're clearing yourself gradually on all levels, and you're overall becoming healed and higher vibrational. So basically you're moving out of that sphere where those dark stuff can interact with you and come in, because you're like no longer compatible with each other. Maybe in that state you don't even need to shield yourself, because like you're this repellent for all those dark forces, because they're unable to be in your midst, basically. But that's a long-term thing, and that takes a lot of time and work. But what you can do now is to shield yourself. You don't have to be that spiritual master who has worked for lifetimes on it. The quickest route to that right now is to like shield yourself and to do it each day. And simultaneously, you're like working on yourself to be a better person, to heal all the traumas and stuff. And like you're gradually like working yourself out of that darker phase of your life and becoming more harmonious overall, basically.
Right. Exactly. And one more thing to I don't want to forget saying is that when we're using these energies, we're not using our own life force energy. We always want to bring the light from source, from God, down through your crown chakra, and utilize that energy. Like that can be directed to a funnel of light, that can be directed to your shield, that whatever. But just remember always to be bringing in other source energy to use for this, because you don't want to use up. It makes you tired and worn out, and sometimes even sick.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
The first year, yeah. I used my own life force energy to fight off some dark beings, and after 3 days, I ended up in an almost near-death experience because I used up my life force. I was like, I didn't know at that time what was happening, but I was like slowly fading away, because I was like leaking my life force energy and my body was giving up on itself. And someone or something like threw me back and like repaired me at the last minute or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but someone grabbed me and like put me back in my body and like, okay, like we're going to fix you up or something. But yeah, like that's because I didn't use source creative energy. I didn't tap into source, because that's like an infinite source of energy. Basically, it's infinite. Basically, it's never ending. And yeah, like, and your life force energy is very finite. It is what keeps you here in your body. And if you use that to heal people or to do stuff, then basically you can make yourself sick. You can also make yourself vulnerable, because you're depleting your field, just as with your immune system. Like our immune system, even if you're healthy, like it fights off like hundreds and thousands of bacteria, viruses, infections, inflammation, and all these like negative stuff that we are bombarded with. But you feel fine because your immune system keeps it in check. You don't even notice all the little battles that are going on inside of your body. But if you become tired, or you have some kind of deficiency, or if you're low on energy, then all those negative stuff start to come up because you don't have enough energy left to keep those inflammations or sicknesses in check any longer. So it's the same way with your energy as well, on the energetic plane, basically. If you're like low on energy, if you're like, I know, like you're leaching, or you're leaking life force energy, or you had like attacks or something, then you're far more vulnerable to stuff. Like even if you're like far advanced in your journey, like I also had those occasions when in my normal state, like I'm okay, like I can deal with those things. But yeah, like I also had my own challenges, and there was these periods in the past 2 years when I was very low on energy, and I was like in depression and stuff like that. And even though if I'm like very high vibration, and I did a lot of work on myself, I was like far more exposed to those dark stuff during these low times when I was like experiencing those difficult times in my life, basically.
Right. And we all do that. I mean, it's not to say that there's anything, but just knowing that, and knowing that to recenter yourself, you can always repair that energy. You haven't like diminished it forever. Just be aware of that, and that you're in your own space. And it feels like your buddy who you taught something is the one pulling you back, and he's like almost annoyed, like seriously, because we're still in the great forgetting. The veil has been thinning for sure. The veil is basically not there. From what I've been channeling, it's a choice now. I guess I'm just still on autopilot making that choice of like having the veil present, but it is this space of like, we know what we're doing. We just kind of just forgotten for a minute. And so we're just all just kind of go along the way and learning these things as we do, learning these tricks. These are everything. Everyone has different things that work good for them based on the resonance of the experience they're in. But in general, I think that you covered everything that you need to do to kind of like protect yourself in your bubble, and with intention, knowing what's happening is really an empowering thing. Knowing what you're doing. I've done stuff on accident throughout my life. I never knew why that experience was occurring. I didn't know how to recreate it, and now that we're starting to get into that space. See, what's happening is we're clearing out these shadows inside us. That's the best way to say what it is. I don't know how else to describe it. Dust. We are this, let's call it, like a building or a structure, and there's corners that are full of dust and stuff. And those things may not have been in the way before, or didn't really seem to be bothering us before. But what that dust is doing, so the things that we've not forgiven ourselves about, those things that we haven't addressed, are kind of creating this film and making it so the light is it's still working, but it's a delayed or a chunky response. It's like, and as we clear these things out, the light can shine through it just so easily. And then when these things clear, now there's a place for the light to go and be, and so we are becoming more and more light as a result. And I don't mean like weightless, but like full of light, and like right now at this time when we're going through all these amazing energies. I'm sure you already mentioned all the different alignments and stuff that's going on right now. It's pretty crazy, and we just had another big warning about the UV increase because of the solar flares hitting us again, and we're having all this cool stuff happening in order to make it possible for us to heal these things. And as we heal them, they're replaced with light. And then whatever we're doing spiritually, that thing is easy at that point. Now we get to learn the next thing, because we're always learning. We may be the teachers, but the teacher never stops being a student.
Yeah, exactly. And you reminded me, I think we did it came through during the channeling session and the Patreon channeling session, basically, that we have like all the power and all the knowledge, and all the challenge in this lifetime is to learn to make it work in this reality.
Yeah.
Like we have access to everything that we need. We just have to find a way that works for us. Like you have to find your own way of how you can tap into source, like how to bring forth those energies, what you can do with it, how it works. Like starting out with the Kabbalion, like I recommend it. Like that was a huge game changer me, the Hermetic teachings, because before that, as you were talking about it, like we do stuff on accident or intuitively. And that's kind of where I was. Like I knew stuff intuitively, but I couldn't really like bring everything together in a conscious way. So I was not able to understand like, okay, like what am I doing? Like, how does this work? And I needed to like make this knowledge conscious. And that's when the book came in basically in my life. And this was this huge, like mind-blowing experience, like, oh, like everything makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like knowing what you're going through and like knowing what you can do is basically half of the battle, in my opinion. Like you have kind of already won in that state because like, okay, like I know it's what's happening and I know what I can do to remedy that situation. And it's no longer this victimhood struggling mentality because you're becoming more empowered and basically you acknowledge that you're the creator of your own reality. Like stuff don't just happen to you, like you
Yeah.
have an influence over it. And
You
yeah,
have the power of it.
yeah. And I think, yeah, Donnie was, what is your method to connect with source? Like, what do you recommend?
I always do the meditative state. But that can come across differently. I was going into a meditative state gardening long before I knew that was meditation, like in a different way, like gardening and being in that space. And then there's always a break time. And anyway, just the best way for me is the higher my vibration, the easier it is to connect, right? And for me, and I think pretty much everybody, but I'm just assuming that high vibration space happens when there's joy, when there's love, when there's peace. And often we can't create that in that moment. Most often when we need to connect, we're struggling with that. That's why we have that desire, and so what I will do is I'll turn on high frequency music. Like there's certain hertz for, I have that on my YouTube channel. There's a file of just high frequency music, and I'll start it like with that just to get myself in that space. But in meditation, just I always start with grounding myself. So I'm bringing the light from the core of Mother Earth up through my root chakra and then all the way up and then locking in my heart chakra, and then light from God coming down through my crown chakra down and locks. And at that point, it's what it feels like to me and also looks like is that I've then created a fixed channel where I can now communicate. Now, and it's not like, hey Bob, how you doing today kind of communication. You just get this, you have this understanding that is part of your DNA now, and like, and just I always go in there with the intention of a hug. I'm a hug person, which is funny because I don't like people touching me, but certain people I like, anyway, I go with the intention of all of a sudden I just want to hug God. And when that happens, the swelling of love that comes over, the amount, it sticks around with you for a while. Once you do that, once you've gotten to that point and allowed yourself that experience, it's easier to go back to. And that's why I gave you that background, is that once I've created that foundation, then all I have to do is to remember the sensation and then God is here again. Like I just need to remember what that's because the moments aren't really time, it's a place as well as sensation. And so that sensation is like a page mark, a bookmark to bring you back to that moment, and so that's how I've found I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, it does. Like it's also very true that if you like you were able to like learn what does it feel like for you to be in that state, you can the more you access it, easier it will be in difficult situations. And the way it works also for me is like visualizing it and like bringing back that feeling up inside of me, like what does it feel like to be in that state? And basically then you're there, you're having access to it again in that state as well. Like what I do to like work through the dense stuff is like tune into my heart center and bring forth the eternal fire to like transmute density, all those heavy energies that can like press down your chest area that I think many of us can feel from time to time, and to like transform all that density so I can lighten up again. And when you're like lightened up and high vibrational, then things flow more easily for you. Then you're much more able to tap into your higher self and do more higher vibrational stuff than when you're in fear or distress. Like those states are like freezing you. You are unable to like move anywhere from that state. And yeah, like sometimes it's not easy to overcome it, but we're yeah, like we're here on planet Earth to like learn the difficult lessons and like how to make our knowledge work in those difficult, dense situations too. And by doing that, we're also assisting other people to lighten up as well and to basically like learn new ways of how we can overcome those old dark patterns that people were so used to. Like we were working through that, and now it's far more accessible to everyone, anyone who wishes to tap into that, basically.
Right. Exactly. And we're in this remembering space it's so much easier to do once you practice it, but to start it out, it's just one little thing at a time. We have all these different layers that need to be addressed, and really to remember the love. Jacques-René Marie earlier said that she uses the pink to fill up her bubble instead of the white, and that's the love frequency. That's beautiful. Allowing yourself to connect to the love. The thing is it really comes down for me down to consumption. What am I going to put my energy in today? Not just what I'm eating. I stopped eating meat a long time ago, and really I noticed a lot of the fear leave me. I didn't realize how much fear was in eating meat, and I'm not suggesting anyone do anything. That's what was my road in this experience. But also, what other types of things do we consume, and what do we watch? Are we looking at fear mongering, sensationalization type of stuff that's pulling us away from that love frequency? Because God is love, just the purest love. Like, I wish so bad. I mean, I would love it if I could truly replicate the experience that I had, to give everyone just to feel that love. And look at this. This is what it looked like when God bore all of us. And the opposite of that is fear. Everything that pulls you farther away from the love and closer to the fear, shame, guilt, those types of things, the harder it's going to be to connect in that moment. But that doesn't mean you're trapped there. It's just to move past it, through it, and be more aware of what we're doing with our energy. There are people who could use our energy for sure, but if they're an energy vampire type of personality, you're not helping anybody. You're lifting up the world by lifting up self. If you take care of you, then the vibration that expands around you not only amplifies, but it sends it out farther, and you're assisting more and more people by doing that, by being gentle with yourself and taking care of yourself and staying in a place of love the best you can.
Yeah, under all conditions, if possible. Okay, so Anne shared, is it a thing with us in general for us not to like people touching us? I really don't like people touching me. It is just very uncomfortable. Yeah, like I think it is.
Yeah, it really is. And not just touching, but just all in. And the thing is these people are all trying to touch us. Like, I go to the store now and people are touching me. Like they try to like they can't help themselves. And I have to share this because I thought it was hilarious. Someone sent this to me because they knew it was me, but it said, the neighbor said, "Hi again. I'm going to have to move," or something like that. I'm going to move. Because it's part of what we are. Like, all the strangers want to tell us all of their secrets, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but they won't stop talking and telling you all about it. They want to touch us. They want to be in your energy, in your frequency. We're giving that energy out freely as we walk through life or stay at home or whatever you're doing. And when someone's in front of you and experiencing that, and I don't think most of them really know what they're doing. Like, it's weird. They'll like clump around me and like touch my elbow and grab my hair and stuff. And like, they can't help themselves. And they look shocked at themselves too. That's what's the most funny, is they're like, what did I just do? Kind of almost, and like, they don't know why. It's just, you are such a powerful being of love light that it's like a moth to a flame. They can't help themselves. And you do rub off, whether or not you make physical contact. We have a 50-foot radius of energy light that we project when we're at our lowest energy space. And so when we walk around, we're rubbing up against people's energy all day long. Even if you're doing the 6-foot, distancing thing, you're still touching, and they just don't know what's going on fully, I think.
Yeah, but intuitively they're drawn to you, or like specific things that make sense to them or can assist them on their journey, even if they are not able to like rationalize it or consciously understand like why are they drawn to specific things and they're like repelled by other stuff, but still their higher self and guides are still guiding them. They just don't really know consciously how it works, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So in closing, do you want to share anything, higher vibrations?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. We're having another Zoom meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think that's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I always mix that up. I think it's 5 p.m. Yeah. And it's free if anyone wants to join. It's just a bunch of awakening people having conversation like this, basically. Only a bunch of us.
Yeah, and it's also private and it's not recorded.
Yeah, it's not recorded or aired anywhere. So it's just whatever is said is left behind. There's times I'm like, man, I wish we would have recorded that, because there's some really amazing information that comes through, but we don't record it. And it's just a bunch of people also coming on with their gifts. And so people are very service oriented and happy to assist anyone that comes in with an issue as well. It's kind of fun to do those group healings and stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Like, check it out. Also, I think we talked about it last week, that the best remedy for like for this isolation that many of us feel is like to actually reach out to people and interact with them. And during those occasions, you're basically acknowledging who you are and you're open about who you are, and it's without any fear of being judged or anything. So these occasions are wonderful to like connect with like-minded people, to see that you're not alone. And now in the era of the internet, like you can connect with anyone. So we don't have to be alone. Like, you can connect with like-minded people at any given moment. It's all on, depends on you, basically.
Yeah.
And if you're interested, I have put Higher Vibrations YouTube channel into the title of the video, so you can access it directly there.
In the community section. I actually haven't posted it yet. I'm going to post it after we're done with this call. And the link to the Zoom meetings are different for each meeting, just to kind of renew the energy. So you'll find every time there's going to be a meeting, that you'll find the day before a link to that meeting in the community section, as well as on our Telegram group. There's a link to that in my channel as well.
All right. Thank you for this opportunity, Higher Vibrations, for doing this for people. And thank you everyone for joining us, to holding the space and sharing all your information and energies. And yeah, it was awesome. Each occasion is awesome to like bring through new information. I really enjoy it. Okay, so thank you for being here. Thank you, Higher Vibrations.
Thank you.
And have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Bye.
Love you.